Welcome back, ladies and gents. Today we're going to talk about Highlander, the search for vengeance. It is quite a ride, so strap in. The movie opens with a dude on a boat in what looks like an abandoned jungle. This is until the light turns on and he meets a vending machine? At least we know there's still Coca-Cola in this world. Well, sorry, Coca-Cola. The guy then hops into what looks like an abandoned building with zombies hanging in the air. Apparently it's not quite abandoned, seeing as tons of other monsters are all toasting marshmallows by a campfire. It doesn't exactly take much to scare them off. Here he fights a monster named Malik, who rightly thought a chainsaw would beat a sword. He was wrong. Our unnamed hero also gets a name. He's Colin. For some reason, a huge flash of light appears as Malik dies. We're then taken to what's apparently New York City that's seen better days, introduced to us with a guitar riff. We get introduced to what must be our main villain stroke rival, whose guitar is good, but not perfect. This world also has talking rats who can turn into old men, as it happens in anime. As Colin walks across a bridge, he gets interrupted by some not so friendly guards and their robots. It appears that Colin is a bounty hunter, and our white-haired guitar player doesn't like that. He has Colin brought to him in an armoured convoy. We find out that a deadly virus killed about 80% of the population, and the vaccine is the only thing keeping people alive. Now that's some good foreshadowing for today, eh? What do you think about that? Predictably, Colin breaks out before meeting his newest sidekick, a little kid named Joe. He gets pointed to a shady bar where we get introduced to Dahlia, almost definitely our love interest for this movie. We flash back to Colin in his past, meeting a woman much like Dahlia called Moya in what looks like the Roman Empire after it fell. We learned that Colin used to be a brave and respected leader. This is also when he vows his love for the new woman. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. Colin and his band are going to get wiped out by a gigantic army led by someone called Marcus Octavius. They share a drink together, but surprise, surprise, the drink's doped and he passes out. Moya then heads to Marcus Octavius, who looks exactly like our favourite guitar player. Here, Moya offers to sleep with Marcus if it means sparing her people from his armies. In a shock to no one, she takes the opportunity to stab Marcus, who bleeds out on the floor. The only real surprise here is how he didn't see that one coming. In a real twist, however, Marcus doesn't die, catching Moya before she sneaks away from the camp. Octavius then ties up Moya, forcing her to watch his attack on her people. Colin wakes up just in time to watch his men being slaughtered. He manages to weakly pick up a sword, but he isn't in any shape to use it, and he gets trapped under a falling building. His army isn't doing much better, and they get ruined. Colin, though, somehow survives, waking up to the wreckage of what used to be his people. In the distance, he sees Moya still hanging atop the corpses of his people. He rushes to her, maybe hoping she's alive. She's barely hanging on and makes Colin vow not to seek revenge. He reluctantly agrees, just as Moya finally dies in his arms. Well, the twist here is Colin swears to seek revenge. We cut back to Colin in the bar, the scene obviously drawing a parallel between Dahlia and Colin. The police are searching for him and he follows Dahlia to safety inside a ruined church. Dahlia then recruits Colin to help her save the city. Then we see a government-controlled area with some government officials talking about expanding their rule further. We find that Octavius is the commander and is forcing his scientists to come up with some dangerous weapons. The police search the city as Colin hides in a ruined subway. A secret entrance leads them to a rebel hideout. It seems like a decent enough place minus the rat soup. We learn that the vaccine is only administered to people living in the tower and everyone else must get by. Dahlia takes Colin to her home, apparently so he can pay to have sex with her. Colin turns her down, knowing there are strings attached. Dahlia wants him to help her steal vaccines, and Colin leaves her place. We catch up with them above ground, where Colin finds out that Marcus is the one who's been running the city. We flash back again to Colin in the past, storming a Roman outpost to find Marcus again. He kills a guard and dons his uniform before finding the man himself. Colin manages to sneak up to his tent before he starts having a seizure. He eventually recovers himself and charges Mark, but he's more than a little outnumbered and gets overwhelmed. Marcus challenges him to a fair duel and the two charge each other in the middle of a field. Despite his best efforts, Marcus gravely injured him, then chased him down. Colin collapses in Stonehenge and Marcus gives up on him. His wounds eventually heal and he revives to meet a spirit called Amargan who tells him he's immortal. Colin blows him off, but a lightning bolt falls on him, showing him that he's immortal but not invincible. Then they talk. Amargan tells him that the Romans have long since perished, but that Marcus is an immortal who's much stronger than Colin. Amargan tells him that immortals get stronger by beheading other immortals and taking their energy in what's called a quickening. Most importantly though, Colin is now infertile. Ouch. Colin still wants revenge, and we return to modern times. Now he's more than willing to help Dahlia infiltrate the tower. The two use a hidden entrance to infiltrate the place, and there are a lot of them around. They run into Joe, who insists on tagging along. Joe's alarm rings off, waking what can only be described as a giant demon crocodile. Colin makes short work of the monster, beheading it and saving Dahlia's life by a second. The three run into a patrol, and Colin charges in rather than waiting to sneak in. He easily takes down the guards before the trio stumble into what looks like a laboratory. Dahlia holds them all at gunpoint, forcing them to give her the vaccine. They're working on something, but the lead scientist is acting more than a little bit suspicious. They've been working on a perfect virus, one that can't be vaccinated against. Apparently these people were the ones behind the pandemic, and Dahlia knocks the creepy guy out. Colin senses Marcus and leaves the other two to go fight him again. He takes what must be the biggest elevator on the planet to get to him. We flash back to Colin in the past again, charging into what looks like a coliseum. Here, rather than helping a woman and her child, he senses Octavius and confronts him again. Octavius gives a long-winded speech before the two trade blows. Once again, Colin is no match for him. Right as he's about to be beheaded, some soldiers charge in, forcing Marcus back. We cut to another battlefield, then another. Each time, Colin tries to find Marcus, trying to get his revenge. Every time, he fails. Every time he builds a new life for him before dying for revenge, he eventually revives, trying to do it all over again. One time, he gets confronted by men who saw him dead and they tried to kill him. He only gets let off thanks to their leader vouching for him. This is where he gets the name Highlander, as he lives his life all over again. For 1,000 years he tried to get his revenge. He confronts Marcus in what looks like Japan, once again not being any match for him. This time he survives as a falling building separates the two. We even see him as a pilot in World War I, jumping onto Marcus's plane before it blows up. He wakes up again in a church holy ground where Marcus can't touch him. Even Marcus starts to wonder if Colin has done anything in the last 2,000 years. Marcus advises Colin to find something else in his life, positive for a psychopath. We cut again to modern times as Dahlia and Joe are still trying to make their escape. Dahlia manages to jump her way to safety, and finally Colin confronts Marcus again. Marcus effortlessly dodges all of Colin's blows before being taunted and thrown back. They have another exchange of blows before Marcus throws Colin through a window and runs him through with his sword. The two then have a duel on the side of a tower before Marcus throws Colin from the top of it. He lands right in front of Dahlia and Joe. Joe leaves with a vaccine as Dahlia surveys his dead body. As she turns to leave, Colin comes back to life. Dahlia drags his mangled body out of the tower as Colin finally lets her know about why he's here and why he wants to kill Marcus in the first place. The two almost get stopped by some guards who thankfully have the worst aim I've ever seen. Dahlia blows up the tunnel with a grenade before escaping. She collapses on the ground before pondering over how much Colin has gone through. We see Colin in his mind talking to Amargan. He stands by her grave as Amargan talks about how Moya has reincarnated through the ages, but Colin has been too single-minded to see it. Her soul is in Dahlia right now. Colin wakes up in their hideout, his injuries healed. Everyone's shocked at his recovery, but it gives them hope that even the impossible is possible. Everyone is rallied to go to war against their oppressors. Dahlia doesn't want Colin to fight, but he takes up the sword anyway. We cut back to Marcus, who finds that the newest virus is now defective. He sends his people to suppress the rebels. We see Dahlia in her room as Colin seeks her out. He thanks her for what she did for him, and Dahlia reasserts her willingness to fight despite not being immortal. The two make love. As Dahlia sleeps, Colin locks her room, intending to keep her safe. The government army patrols the street as the rebels watch. Colin asserts that the only way to win is to kill Marcus, as the rest have to buy time. Joe shows him another hidden entrance to the tower. The rebels' first shot missed, and the fighting starts. Dahlia wakes up to find herself locked in her room. She eventually manages to break through as Colin tries getting into the tower again. He has to run through a small army, but he manages with some sneaking, or he would have, before Marcus's assistant finds him in a helicopter. There's an explosion, and Marcus uses it to run. He gets chased by the assistant, and Dahlia manages to knock her chopper out of the sky. She dies from a hail of bullets as Dahlia buys time for her. The two profess their love as Colin goes to fight Marcus. The rebel who missed before finally manages to hit the slowest moving tank ever. Dozens of rocket launchers all aim at the tower. At the top, Marcus and Colin confront each other. Marcus claims he'll use the virus to kill everyone in 2 minutes unless Colin can stop him. The two fight, and Colin is outmatched. Big surprise there. Time ticks down, and Colin fails to disarm the virus in time, even as Marcus impales him. Dahlia gets impaled by the assistant, who's managed to come back to life. The rebels all start to die from the virus. Dahlia shoves a grenade into her mouth before she dies, taking them both out. Colin realizes she's died and finds one last push to stand up. The two fight, and Colin finally puts Marcus on the back foot before snapping his sword and beheading him. Shockwaves destroy both the tower and the army. The quickening manages to wipe out the virus too, saving the rebels. Colin lights a candle for Dahlia before leaving again. Then the credits roll. Whew. That was quite the movie now, wasn't it? We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Oh, and leave future movie suggestions down in the comments too. Peace.